In this video, we're going to start solving absolute value inequalities. So when we first started talking about absolute values, we said there's kind of two definitions. One, which is useful a lot of times, is the absolute value just gets rid of negative signs. But the formal definition of the absolute value is the distance from 0 on the number line. And this is going to be really helpful when we're talking about inequalities, and we'll see why in a second. So just remember this extra definition of absolute values will be helpful. All right, so let's say the absolute value of x is bigger than 3. All right, well, let's look at a number line. Since the absolute value is related to a number line, we have 0. When our distance away from 0 for our thing to be bigger than 3, well, I can go 3 to the right. All right, that's a distance 3 away from 0, and I want to be bigger than that. I want to be farther away from 0, so I want all of this stuff as my answer. I could also go this direction 3, to negative 3, but I want to be farther away from 0. So this is stuff closer to 0. I want to be farther away from 0. I also want all of this in my answer. Right. So if I want to be, my absolute value wants to be bigger than a number, I want to be farther away from 0 than that number. So my final answer is my x could be to the left of negative 3, or my x could be to the right of positive 3. And remember that distance away from 0 is helpful. So my distance wants to be bigger, means I want to be farther away from something, and that can let me visualize on a number line what my answers should look like. What if my absolute values want to be less than a number? Well, same thing. I can think about my number line. 0. I can go 5 one direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I want my distance to be less than that. If your distance is less than something, you want to be closer. So I want to be closer to 0 than 5. So I want to be all of this stuff. I could also go 5 to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's negative 5 on the number line. I want to be closer to 0 than that because I want to be less than. So that's all this stuff. And let's use a different color. It's all this stuff. And my answer is my x values need to be to the right of negative 5, so they need to be bigger than negative 5, but they need to stop at positive 5. So I can write it like this. My x values, everything in here is going to be a distance smaller than 5, so my x's can all be in this region. It's bounded on the left by negative 5, bounded on the right by positive 5. All right, so here's a quick recap. Whenever I have an inequality, an absolute value inequality with a less than sign, let's just pick a random number, that's going to create that compound type of statement like this. Right? Thinking about just I want to be closer to 0. I want to be kind of wedged in between those two numbers and be close to 0. If I have a greater than sign, actually make it a greater than sign. I want to be farther away, so I want to be kind of all the way to the left, which is less than the negative value, and all the way to the right, which is bigger than the positive value. This takes a lot to get used to. Two completely different things depending on the sign. This one's not too bad when you recognize what's happening. This one, you have a less than and a negative, a greater than and a positive, so this second one. But these are coming from the fact that you're kind of on the outskirts of the number line. So here's one for you to try on your own. The only difference with them is you have the equal sign. So make sure the equal sign's in your answer. Other than that, nothing's the same. So go ahead and write your answer for this problem. I'll show you the answer in 3, 2, 1. This is a less than sign, so I'm going to be close to 0 and be wedged into that middle of the number line, and that's how I know it's kind of compound 1. All right, here my absolute value of x is bigger than or equal to 1. Again, this is one I want you to try on your own, so pause the video. Try on your own. I'll show you the answer in 3, 2, 1. All right, this is going to look like this. Again, if I'm bigger than this, I'm kind of thinking about I have 0, and I want to be farther away from it. So this left-hand side of my number line is when I'm less than the negative value. The right-hand side of this number line is when I'm bigger than the positive value. All right, for this skill check, it's just real basic that absolute value of x is either bigger than or less than a number, just making sure you can write those inequalities in the correct way. And if you need to draw a number line, visualize if you have that kind of middle section or the outside section, remembering that the absolute value is the distance away from 0 that can help you determine, all right, if I want a bigger distance, I want to be far away. If I want a smaller distance, I want to be closer.